I know you're gonna dig this.
Hi, this is Stan the Man, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's Funk Chronicles. Talk back. We're recording live here at the DATV Studios in Dayton, Ohio. Zooming in from Cincinnati, Chris FREEKBASS Sherman. Welcome. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing this morning?
Oh, we're doing outstanding. Man, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. And you know,
man, well, I'm honored to be here.
You know, the thing that I love about this is just that I'm one of these kind of interviewers. Just let you just take off and tell us about Chris FREEKBASS Sherman. You know, more of how you got started, and then I see that you got the guitar with you. We're gonna hear a little bit about that funky bass you that made that name for you. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah, man. So
first, just tell us, how you got into this music thing, and tell us a little bit about, some of your influences and things. Just start talking, man. I'm just so excited about this.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I tell you, a big part of my history and a big part of the reason who I am and why I sound the way I do and the kind of music I play is actually from growing up here in Ohio. You and I were talking about it a little bit off air before we got on today, and it's Cincinnati, and as we all know, Ohio specifically has always had this very strong, rich funk history. And when I was a little kid, a lot of my friends were, getting into more like rock stuff and like, Nirvana and Green Day and stuff. And I started like hearing, I was listening to like, Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. And then I was like, man, one of these grooves are killing. I love the way these sound. And then as I kind of kept getting deeper into it, he started like learning about Zapp being from Dayton, Ohio, and then of course about Bootsy. And then, being a bass player, that's kind of what drove me that way. And I remember, hearing More Bounce to the Ounce for the first time by Zapp, and I was like, that's the kind of bass that I want to play. I want to play like that. So that's, I always say in interviews, if I grew up in a different part of the country or a different part of the world, I'm sure I would still be playing music, but I'm not sure specifically if I'd be playing funk, and specifically Ohio type funk, which is, I think, a very specific type of funk. Of all the types that, funk's a pretty big word nowadays, and every part of the world's got their own kind of, take on it, whether it be New Orleans or Minneapolis or Oakland, California. And I think Ohio definitely has its very distinct sound, and that's what I'm definitely part of and proud to be part of, for sure.
Well, I tell you what excites me, man, is the ideal that, you said you were were you raised in Cincinnati?
Yeah, man, born, raised, the whole 9 yards, yep.
So you were right there. Do you know that's where James Brown did a lot of his early recording?
Oh, I'm very well aware of all that. Yeah. I'll know the history very well here in Cincinnati, Ohio.
And being a bass player, I know you had to learn on the one.
Oh, I was all about on the one. That's what made sense to me, Yeah. Ohio's all about that. James brought that here, from Georgia, brought it up to Georgia, and then Bootsy and George and all those guys, brought it up to another level, and that's what I'm doing today, is trying to continue that tradition.
Well, I tell you what, man, what excites me is that not only are you a bass player, but you're also you create your own music. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, as early as when I started playing bass, around the same time I started luckily getting into songwriting and writing songs too. And I think playing, being a player is one thing, and also being a music writer and producer is another thing. And just as you get more accomplished and get better on your instrument, as you continue to experiment with writing music and production in the studio, that was kind of happening same time for me at the same time. And actually, when I met Bootsy, and we started working together, that was one of the things he really helped me out a lot with was, besides, when I met him, I was like, oh, I'm gonna learn all this great bass stuff, which of course I did. But the biggest thing is, he kind of helped me get around in the studio about production and how to put, a studio record versus a live record, and about songwriting and the whole process with that. And that's something that really kind of catapulted me as well. It's the songwriting thing. I think that's, all our favorite players, bass players or musicians or whatever. It's what makes them timeless is the music that they're making with their particular instrument or their voice, and that's something that I've always tried to focus on.
Well, what would you describe the music? How would you describe it? Should I say, the music that you typically create? I mean, is it all funk, or is it? Do you go into the pop field? How do you do?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's rooted in funk for sure, but I think just like when George Clinton and Bootsy and all those guys, when they were coming up, you had cats like Frank Zappa and David Bowie around at that time, and so you could feel that kind of influence into their music. And then same thing with me, the era that I'm growing up in. There's a lot of stuff happening, whether it be electronic music or alternative music. I like a lot of music from the UK, from England, and so as much as funk is like definitely the staple of everything, but there's obviously other influences kind of coming into that music style too for what I write as well.
Do you have you collaborated with some artists, and if so, who? And tell us a little bit about some of the stories that all came to be.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, like I mentioned a little bit earlier in the interview, probably the game changer for me is when I started working with Bootsy Collins. Bootsy had me actually over to this is kind of the nutshell story. Gary Mudbone Cooper, who I know you're familiar with, was doing a song for this label over in Japan called P-Vine Records, which is like a funk and soul label out of Japan, and he had heard about me playing bass around Cincinnati. I was starting to get a little bit of a name for myself, and he had asked me to come play on some demos of his. And one day he called me up, he said, hey, we're going to be doing this song for P-Vine. It's about Jimi Hendrix, myself, and Michael Hampton from Kid Funkadelic from P-Funk. We're doing a track together. And I said, oh, he's like, do you want to play bass on it? And I was like, oh yeah, man, of course. And I said, well, where are we recording it at? And he's like, oh, we're going to do it over at Bootsy's, just off the cuff. Oh, we're doing it at Bootsy's. He's going to produce and engineer it. And I was like, what? Hold on. So he brought me out there. We recorded out at Bootsy's studio. Bootsy and I really hit it off. That's basically where he kind of came up with the name FREEKBASS. He started calling me, I think he couldn't really remember my name, so he kind of said, he'd say, hey man, do that freaky bass thing. And then as the day went on, the freaky bass thing everybody started calling me FREEKBASS around the studio, kind of stuck. And so he and I started working together for many years. I was also lucky enough to be able to work with Mr. Bernie Worrell from P-Funk and Talking Heads, and he was a big influence. He stayed at one of my albums. He actually stayed at my house for a couple weeks, and we worked on songwriting. And I mean, he was a huge influence on me. And I'm sure all your listeners know, very much about the amazing genius of Mr. Bernie Worrell. Worked with Buckethead, amazing guitar player who I actually met through Bootsy as well. Bucket, and I've done some stuff together. Kind of in different genres. Mike Gordon from the band Fish, him and I have done some recording together too. I do a lot of festivals and tours, so I'm actually kind of sitting in with a lot of folks all the time from all different genres and stuff. I've got a new record actually I'm getting ready to come out with here in the fall, which has got musicians such as Doug Wimbish from Living Colors on it, Stefan Lessard from Dave Matthews Band, Nigel Hall from the amazing group Lettuce, and Derek Trucks Band. So I'm kind of all over the place with different musicians for sure.
Man, that sounds exciting. Seriously, it really do. And man, we can't wait for that album. You got any favorite cuts on it that you want to tell us about?
Oh man, well, I mean, so many. So the album it's we're going to be releasing them as singles. So we're going to be basically releasing about a single a month for the many months to come. There's a label that I'm on out of Denver, Colorado called Color Red Records, and they are releasing a lot of the album. The very first single, I believe, is a song called Runaway, which is really, really good one. And then the second single is a song called Under Krameria, which is a street in Denver, Colorado. That's what I named it after. It's a Krameria, I believe, Krameria. And that is like an instrumental song, which is very reminiscent. It sounds like it came right off the Maggot Brain album by Funkadelic. The Color Red has a very distinct production style. It's everything's recorded live on tape, not on computer, like old school on tape. So it has that real kind of natural sound. And so that's dope. So yeah, I mean I just can't wait to get me new music out. I got a lot of new music. I have a new show I've been doing every live stream show every Saturday night from my Facebook page, which is called Saturday Night Chit Chat, where I have different groups on, but I also preview a lot of the new music I'm doing. It's kind of a music variety show. And that's every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on which is FREEKBASS Music. That's FREEKBASS Music. That's the Facebook the address. And I do a lot of previewing and the stuff there. So if anyone wants to get a little early preview, that's where you could hear some of those tracks.
Well, I tell you what, I was hoping that you had your bass strapped to you, and I found out that you do. So
yeah, it's right here.
If you don't mind, just hit just a few riffs right now, and then we'll have you come back and do a little bit more. But I'm a drummer myself, so bass player and a drummer is supposed to be on the one. So let's just hear a little bit of this.
All right, let's see. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3.
Oh man!
There you go. There's a little more early morning funk for you.
That is awesome, man. Chris FREEKBASS Sherman, and I can see why you got that nickname. Bootsy was right. My goodness. If you could open up a show for any artist, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a hard one. So many out there that well, I mean, it depends on what era you're talking about. I guess if you're talking about somebody that's out there currently right now, you mean that's out there touring right now?
I have to say, just some of your favorite artists. If you just had the chance, living or dead. I know it's a dream of some musicians saying, "Wow, I wish I had a chance to play with them," or they had a chance to see me play. Who would that be?
Sure. Well, probably definitely Sly and the Family Stone when they were kicking it. Huge Sly and the Family Stone. I'd love to get up there with Larry and or a little bit So yeah, a little bit of that,
man,
get up there and kind of jam on some thank you. Stevie Wonder, definitely for sure, but definitely back in the Talking Book era, that early '70s era. David Bowie, I'm a huge Bowie fan. I would have loved to have back when he was really kicking it, Ziggy Stardust times, get to jam with him. Talking Heads for sure, back when they were kicking it too as well. So yeah, those would be definitely a lot of the bands that I would love to connect with, and probably current, like someone that's, I've always had this dream. I really want to do a track one day with Dr. Dre. I mentioned him earlier in the interview. He's got such an appreciation and such a feel for the funk, And on a modern tip, I think it would be really great to collaborate with him, play and have. I'd love to have him produce a track of something that I'm doing too. I'm a huge fan of his.
If I hired Freak Bass right now today to do a live performance, what would you bring me? Okay, I got a big funk festival, say, happening here in Dayton.
Oh yeah.
In 6 months from now, and I want to hire Freak Bass. What would he bring to the stage? How many musicians? Who travels with you? And what type show would you put on?
Yeah, well, we've got a pretty happening band. We call it Freak Bass and the Bump Assembly. My band's called the Bump Assembly, so it's obviously myself on bass and vocals. We've got on drums, my drummer is actually Rico Lewis. Rico actually toured with George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic for 15 years himself. Rico's actually a Dayton guy too as well. You should try to hook up and get him on the show sometime too. He's got some amazing stories. So Rico's my drummer, and then keyboard player, a guy named Sky White. I used to tour with actually Razor Sharp Johnson from Bootsy and P-Funk, but Razor moved on to the other plane a couple years ago. So now Sky White, he plays he was from a group called Foxy Shazam. We toured all over the world. He's playing keyboards with me now, and then my singer is Miss Sammy Garrett, who is out of Brooklyn, New York. She tours with me. She comes in and when we do shows, and we hook up at one central location before a tour starts. Amazing singer, and also Riley Commissar, who's another singer from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Man, that's so you're not just coming with 2 or 3 little pieces. I see that right now. That's
we got we ain't P-Funk size yet, but we got a few people up there on stage. Yeah,
you see George, he come with 15.
Oh yeah, I get it too, man. I love big bands.
Oh my goodness.
It's just tough touring with that big of an ensemble. It gets a little tough sometimes.
That's right. What if it wasn't for your music? What would you be doing right now?
Outside of playing, my other passion is I'm actually a superhero I'm kind of a geeky superhero guy. I love everything with the superhero movies. I've done a bunch of podcasts where I've been on stuff where we talk about superhero movies and that whole, so cinema for sure, something to do with the movies and cinema, probably fantasy, science fiction, superhero type stuff. That's definitely a big passion of mine, on top of music.
Wow, that's a whole different change right there. I tell you that.
Oh yeah. Well, funk musicians are superheroes. That's the deal.
One of my favorite questions I always try to ask people is where have you performed, and some of your favorite venues that you haven't. It never leaves your mind, and then secondly. Give me one of the worst venues that you hope you will never get booked back in.
Oh my gosh! Well, there's a few. Any musicians on the road know they've come into contact with a few of those before. Probably the best one, one of my favorite venues to perform in is it's in New York, Brooklyn, New York. It's called Brooklyn Bowl. It's an amazing venue. There's Brooklyn Bowl. There's now Brooklyn Bowl in Nashville. There's a Brooklyn Bowl, I believe, in London, and there's also one in Las Vegas. But the original one is in New York City, in Brooklyn. Well, it's in Brooklyn, New York, and that's just an amazing venue. They have great acts that come through there. It's very artist friendly, great crowds. Music festival. There's a music festival for many years in Florida called Bear Creek Music Festival, which was kind of a funk-oriented music festival, and that was that's one of the festivals. This is like maybe 2010 or so, where I kind of started. They hired me to come out and be what they call an artist at large, where you actually jump from band to band. You come in and sit in with them and play. Like I would play bass with other bands, and one of the bands I was lucky enough to have a big jam with was a band called Dumpster Funk, which is a lot of the cats from New Orleans, the Neville, Ivan Neville, his group out of New Orleans, incredible funk band. So, and tons of funk bands will play there. So those are probably my favorite. Yeah, probably Brooklyn Bowl and Bear Creek Music Festival. There's a great another music festival out of Illinois called Summer Camp Music Festival, which I played a few times, which I love too. That's a pretty big one. Of course, those aren't currently happening because of the situation we're in, but hopefully those will kick up again here soon. So as far as worst venues, I don't want to give any names out because anybody that's trying to put music in the world, I don't want to say bad thing, but there have been some pretty raunchy ones over the years too. You get in there and promoter doesn't really know what's going on, or you kind of show up and but the ones that are the tough ones is when you got like, it's one of those in between days. It's like a Monday or Tuesday, you've been on the road, you're in the middle of like Iowa or Montana somewhere, and you got a Monday or Tuesday that your agent was trying to fill in for you, and sometimes those can be the best gigs in the world too, and you'd be really surprised, but sometimes those can be a little raunchy too as well. So, but the good thing about music is you get up the next day and you get in the van or the bus and start all over again, and then the next day takes care of that.
Well, I tell you what, when you talk, no, we don't have to mention any names. You don't even have to mention cities, but I would like to hear a story about a trip that you took and did a gig, man, and you would tell yourself, oh my goodness, what a show, what a show. And I know you got some of your best shows in your head that I sure would like to hear, man.
Yeah. For the, you talking about for the bad ones or for the good ones? For the good ones?
Yeah, let's go good for this time.
Okay, the good ones. Geez, a weasel. There's so many that I can, we play every year down in, for the last 5 years, we've done New Year's Eve down at this really great venue down in Dunedin, Florida. It's a really cool venue down there, which is Dunedin's right outside of Tampa. And those shows are always off the chain. I mean, they're just, people come from all over the state to come there. It's gotten to be, since we do it so many years in a row, everybody knows it's a thing. So they're always crazy. Last show I think I was jumped up on their bar there and was running across the bar playing bass too as well. So they get pretty crazy and out of hand, and everybody just keeps feeding you energy, and they just get crazier and crazier. So those are always good. And it's always really special too, of course, when I play in Cincinnati. I don't play I came from here, so I used to play here a lot when I first started out, but I only play here once or twice a year. We did a show just a few months back at this great new venue called Ludlow Garage, which is a legendary venue in Cincinnati that just opened up again, and it was called FREEKBASS and the Bump Assembly Does P-Funk. And we did, I actually had Gary Mudbone Cooper came out as he was part of the band that night, and we kind of made the band a little bit bigger than it normally is. And we did a bunch of our versions of Parliament Funkadelic, and we did everything. We did some of the old catalog from the Funkadelic Maggot Brain days all the way up into the Parliament Funkadelic Mothership era, even stuff in the early 80s with someone like stuff like Atomic Dog and stuff like that. And that was a really, really special show, because that's playing those songs with some of the original members of that band that sang on those tracks, being Mudbone being one of them. It was a really, really special show. It sold out. It was their biggest night they'd had there at the club. So that one sticks. And that was one of the last ones that happened before this whole COVID thing happened too as well. So that's still pretty fresh in my mind. I'd done maybe another 2 weeks after that, and that was it for me for touring for a bit. So
I can
that's
just
the one that
imagine.
really sticks in there.
Wow, I can just imagine. I bet you it was funky as it want to be. I'm just going to tell you. Here in Dayton, Ohio, we have the Funk Music Hall of Fame here. I am just one who have always tried to support it, and I just wanted your input on exactly what do you think about the Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center here, and do you think that was something that needed to be?
Yes, very, very much so. I was so incredibly happy when I heard about that starting to come together, the fact that you're doing that, the fact that it's in Ohio, the fact that it's specifically in Dayton, Ohio, I think is the place it should be, and I'm glad that it's there. I have so many musicians from all over the country that know about this. I was talking about New York earlier. A good friend of mine, drummer friend of mine, I was talking about it with him, and he was just saying how excited he was that it's happening there. So it's an amazing thing you're doing there, and funk is it's almost as big of a word as saying rock and roll anymore. It's just such a big word, and it's having a huge resurgence right now too as well. So it's really great that you are recognizing so much of the tradition that's happened, with funk, and every funk musician I know and any music fan I know, when they hear about the Funk Hall of Fame, they're really excited that that is existing and that it's moving forward.
Well, we just your sound right there, man. It just brings back the memories of some of the best funk bass players that we've had, I'm so glad you are keeping that tradition alive. Really, that's the thing I love about it. Just once I heard your style playing just earlier today, it is just amazing that someone can take that and go with it, man, and keep it alive for all of the funksters. You understand what I mean?
Well, like I said at the beginning, it's from growing up here in Ohio, man. It's like, you know, it's in the blood here in Ohio, you know.
You know, here's the thing that I've always wondered, especially for those who started back years back. How do you feel the internet has impacted the music business?
Very positively. You know, first off, I think it's making us all, you know, this world is a pretty small world, you know, especially when you get in the internet, you know, and I can be talking to someone in Japan or in the UK or, you know, anywhere in the world, you know, and they can be listening to your music anywhere in the world. So we're connecting with people both with the music and also with communication. So that naturally, I mean, I think everybody's starting to, the streaming thing was tough to kind of get used to at first, because, you know, you're going from having physical product to having predominantly digital product. But in a way, it's gone back. Like my last release actually was released on vinyl. It's my first vinyl release I've ever had, which I was super excited. Color Red, that label I was talking about, they released the last album on. So you could get it digitally, of course, but also you could get it actually at shows. It was actually not even CD, it was actually vinyl, and those sell really, really well right now. If you go to Target right now, it's crazy. You know, you can't even buy a CD player right now, but you can buy a turntable, which is crazy. So so I think internet has impacted music, you know, in a great way, because, you know, you're able to connect with people you weren't able to connect with directly before. You can connect directly with fans, like I do. I mentioned my Saturday night show. On every Wednesday night, I do a thing called Bass Talk that I live stream, and I break down. Like last night, I did broke down Earthquake by Graham Central Station, and just kind of connected with people, right, you know, just went live at 9 o'clock and went there and just started connecting with people that way. And I think that communication, be able to connect one-on-one with people, I think that's priceless.
Well, you know, it's just, when I ask musicians that question, you know, I sometimes get a little mixed because they feel that, you know, sometimes that the internet just doesn't get them to be one-on-one with people, you know. But it, as far as promotion, I think it's a plus. It definitely is. You know.
Yeah, for sure. You can. Yeah, it's a good way to get you know, your music out there. And, you know, right now, especially, I mean, thank goodness we have the internet. You know,
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, this is the only way that we're able to, you know, most of us that tour are only able to play, you know, live and connect with people is through the internet right now, so at least for at least the foreseeable future. So that right there is definitely a good thing.
Well, let me tell you, Chris Freak Bass Sherman, I tell you this. I'm through talking, because I definitely want to hear a little bit more of that bass before we get out of here. So.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Let me get one here. Let me go down a little bit so you can see a little bit of the playing here. I'll do a song of ours. This is a song we did, a song called Milk Hunt. Okay, this is off of our last record. You can find that online, Spotify, anywhere else. It goes like this. There you go. How's that for a little bit of morning
Hey,
funk
man,
for you?
outstanding. Love it. Love it.
Right
Thank you
on,
so
right
much,
on.
man. We really appreciate it. Chris FREEKBASS Sherman, all the way
Yeah,
from
man.
Cincinnati.
I dropped the Chris a few years ago. You just call me Freak or FREEKBASS. There you
All
go.
right,
That
man.
makes it easy.
We gonna, cause you definitely freaky as you want to be, man. I will tell you.
Right on, man.
Hey,
Right
thank you
on.
so
Well, I
much,
can't
man.
wait.
We appreciate you giving us your time today. All righty.
Oh, well, thank you guys. And thank you guys so much what you all are doing. And, any way I can support, or get the word out there, I'm more than happy. And I know many musicians will be. And you guys are doing an amazing thing. And again, just thank you for making funk a priority here in the world. We really appreciate it.
This is Stan the Man, host of Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's award-winning show, Funk Chronicles. Talk back. Until next time, keep it funky.